an outlier of his profession, a role model to his people, and one of the most humble and consistent champions of all time. To place Canelo Alvarez amongst the greatest in history is a measure that cannot be failed to be considered, securing incomparable achievements and becoming one of Mexico's greatest boxing icons since the reign of Julio Cesar Chavez. And so, with the argument of who the greatest of all time is forever continuing, looking into this particular era, excluding the likes of Floyd and Manny, the title is likely to be earned by a man who has been setting the boxing world on fire since he was 15. So don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up as we take a look at why Canelo Alvarez could be considered the greatest boxer of this era. Winding back the clocks to his childhood, Alvarez was deemed different to most kids. With a talent for boxing and a unique appearance, his pale skin and red hair stood out from the crowd. Shortly after competing at the Junior Nationals, he turned pro at just 15, after struggling to find tougher competition as an amateur.
Let's see who can emerge here, and then the fighters are all the better for it, for the tough competition.
Though the early part of his career being poorly documented, the first 19 months quickly ignited as he knocked out 11 of his 13 opponents in the first 19 months.
I mean, he's been a terrific fighter since he's a teenager. Everyone used to watch him on YouTube, in Mexico, and there's a reason he was connecting to the crowd.
Continuing, he eventually came to settle at welterweight, taking his third official bout of his career against Miguel Vazquez, someone who seemed adamant that he won the first of their two fights.
Could be the future of Mexico, why not? I mean, even though I feel I beat him the first fight, but I still think that, why not?
Things were looking good for the young Mexican, and as he plowed through opponents stacking up a resume of knockouts, an appearance on the Mayweather-Mosley undercard had cropped up, presenting him with the opportunity to prove himself in front of a much larger audience.
Escúchame, cuídate, listos, vámonos.
His opponent, Jose, the brother of Miguel Cotto, was someone who would hand Canelo his first scare amongst his professional career.
And he is wobbled by a left hook, and he's in trouble, and Cotto's dumping him. And maybe the matchmaking was a mistake, but no, he gets out of trouble, still wobbling.
Being just 19 at the time, it was understandable. Managing to overcome his first taste of vulnerability from a simple lack of experience, it was soon after he would resurrect the error in emphatic fashion.
Go! And he scored! Vicious body shot from Alvarez. Well, Alvarez wants to get that point back.
That's what he's been looking for all fight, Alvarez.
With the record stacking up quickly, it was time for a step up in levels, bringing him to a bout with welterweight veteran Sugar Shane Mosley. It had crossed the minds of most that Mosley would be too much for Alvarez at this point. Yet it seemed although the step up, a weathered version of Sugar Shane lacked reflexes and the ability to put a dent in the young prospect.
And still, WBC Super Welterweight Champion of the World.
Triumphing at Super Welter, Canelo became notorious for his body punches. The offensive variety of switching from head to body was a reckoning force in Canelo's arsenal. And with footage emerging of him practicing in the gym, it could be seen the Mexican was quite the wrecking ball. Maintaining perfect momentum, a test against the most elite level boxer he had ever fought was next, in a night that would either make or break his resilient nature.
Everybody always talk about, we got the remedy. We gonna beat Mayweather. We got the remedy. Shut up.
To adjust on the fly is second to none. 1-2 combination there by Mayweather in the hands. Oh, and a clubbing left hand and a jab from Canelo. And Mayweather smiles as he goes to work on the body.
It wasn't the result he expected, but with Floyd being at the top of his game even through the twilight of his career, it was always going to be a tough ask on any given day.
De las cosas más grandes en mi carrera y poder cambiar el resultado sería algo que me encantaría.
Now entering the deep end, Alvarez was certainly facing bigger and better opposition. And after his one and only loss, his boxing IQ had evolved even further, making him a much more imposing figure in the ring, as he reaped the rewards headlining multiple Vegas pay-per-view events.
Canelo can't miss with the straight right hand.
Not from that.
Painting Kirkland with those shots. There's a perfect straight right hand, and Shorely's gonna stop the fight.
155 pounds for the challenger, Canelo Alvarez.
Soon he would challenge Miguel Cotto for the WBC middleweight world title in what was nothing short of a 12-round boxing slugfest.
Now here comes Cotto with left hook, left hook, left hook.
Good right hand, Dr.
Harold.
Oh!
Asserting tremendous effort, the Puerto Rican put up a close fight against Alvarez, and though Canelo appeared to inflict the more significant and damaging punches to gain the final victory, the scorecards were still presented with a surprisingly wide difference. At this point, the recognition was on the rise for Mexico's boxing gladiator, making Canelo a huge draw and a payday for those in his weight class, as well as those who dared to step up from the divisions below.
Here, another round looks as though it's heading Mexico's way. Oh, it certainly is now.
After securing the WBO at a super welter against Callum Smith, there was still only one fight that people called for. A fight against someone that had been marked the most avoided man in boxing at the time, and a fight that would make a perfect stylistic matchup alongside Alvarez.
Golovkin, you are next, my friend.
And to that it was.
Slipping and countering to the body.
Canelo just had to be careful not to run into one of those big shots too early.
With both men trading simultaneously, the fans certainly got what they expected. The more it progressed, the closer it got. But further down the stretch, the Kazakh's pressure and work rate had slowed down the Mexican, causing him to take time off, retreating to the back foot. With a back-and-forth barrage between both men, there was no doubt the fight had been one of the most evenly matched fights seen in a long time. And with neither man really getting outboxed by the other, it always deemed to be a close call.
A three-way split. This is officially a draw.
A draw may have been fair, but with most seeming to have Golovkin edge Alvarez in punch output, the final decision topped alongside Adelaide Bird's 118 to 110 scorecard to Canelo caused quite a stir.
The reality of the situation is that this has been tarnished by a judge that clearly had no business judging the fight.
Worst case scenario, I say a decision 7-5, but worst case scenario, a draw.
Controversy is often common in boxing, and with one of the most exciting fights of recent times left undecided, it was never a question as to whether it would go down for a second time.
You promised us also you were going to fight the knock Golovkin out in 10. You did.
Y te hablo a ti porque tu peleador no dice nada. Eres el que más abres el hocico.
The bout was heated from the start, with Gennady's trainer Abel accusing Canelo of running, not standing toe-to-toe like a true Mexican should. But with Canelo vowing to stop Golovkin's second time around, his antics in the ring proved he wasn't lying.
Good shot. Good left hand. And look at the chin of Golovkin. He did no more than blink.
Exchanging leather throughout, it was Canelo this time that had decided to play the part of the bully, making things uncomfortable for the Kazakh. With Alvarez's pressure added to the mix, the pace was noticeably faster than before. But with his work being the more eye-catching to the judges over Gennady, it brought the bout to another razor-close finish, announcing Canelo the winner.
Appreciated every moment, and now the hatred, the enmity forgotten.
And new
Another body shot, and down goes Fielding in the first round.
Slaying the toughest test of his career, Canelo had done what most doubted he could do, showing adjustments to his game from being a highly skilled counterpuncher to one who could now also force pressure against his opponents, whilst exhibiting a sheer granite chin that just didn't seem to dent.
And you can see how calm he is. Wow, big shot by Jacobs.
By the end of 2019, a new form of challenge was needed for the Mexican, and a challenge that would etch his name even deeper into the history books.
That's big to move up from 54 to 60 to jump up to 75. Let's see him do it.
I think Canelo wins. I think Canelo stops him.
A clash against Russia's Sergey Kovalev was certainly no joke. After the Russian towered over Alvarez in over 4 inches of additional height, not to mention the extra length and reach, though the Russian standing as the physically bigger and stronger of the two.
Canelo was way too sharp, looking to counter. There you go. See, those are the counters that Kovalev must fear. Right now.
The body language and performance of Kovalev seemed quite the opposite, as he took a tentative approach from the beginning. Struggling to get to the inside made it a tricky night for Alvarez, but eventually by the late rounds, a worn-out Kovalev had created one too many openings for his opponent, and in good time Canelo took full advantage, using full force.
Kovalev's hurt! Kovalev's down! Kovalev's out! It's over! That fast! Canelo is the light heavyweight champion of the world!
With a year of inactivity and complications outside of the ring, Canelo's journey continued a year after entering a comeback collision against Britain's super middleweight champion, Callum Smith. Standing at 6 foot 3 inches tall, the height advantage was a significant one for Alvarez. And unlike Kovalev, who had already passed his fighting prime, Smith evenly matched Canelo for age, also possibly being the fresher man of the two.
Callum Smith needs to build confidence in this fight, right? In this round, and even just landing a shot.
Going in with the exact same game plan as executed in his previous fight, the strategic method of walking down and closing the distance made for a difficult night for the Brit.
Jab again in the right hand from Canelo.
And as he managed to put Callum's back amongst the ropes, the onslaught of Canelo's heavy artillery started to inflict some serious damage.
When he blocked that right hand, that's from Canelo, it drove him back.
Showing little to no respect for Smith, Canelo's endless success of cutting off the ring and applying relentless forward pressure put the trigger-shy Brit into a clear position of stalemate. By the 12th, the lack of answers and a grueling right bicep injury earned Alvarez yet another win of pure dominance.
He was good tonight, fair play to him. Saw an arm kicked at me in it, but yeah, no excuses.
And so now, becoming a multiple world title holder at super middle, Alvarez's pursuit to conquer the division has seemed to begin. Getting past a mandatory challenger in Avni Yildrim will ultimately open the floodgates for even bigger fights in the mid to latter half of the year. Saunders, Plant, Benavidez all waiting their turn to face the Mexican. But will any of them fare up to the challenge when being assigned to a mission that's looking more impossible by the day?